Welcome to The Kingdom Sleeps, the fantasy bedtime story decided by the roll of a dice. My name's Andrew, I'll be your story master for this evening.
And my name's Tom, and I'll be playing the character Yohm. So just a little bit of information before we get started with tonight's episode. We want to ask yet again if it's okay for any of you who have been creating alongside our podcast here to please share your creations with us. We've had some really nice art so far. We've had some lovely written contributions by some of the community as well. And we keep seeing a few comments of people who like to hone their craft while listening into the show. And we are really excited to see what you've been making. So if you've got any pictures or any stories you can share with us, please send them in to greetings@thekingdomsleeps.com or tag us in any of our socials, and we'll love to share it with the rest of the community too.
Also, on top of that, we've been thinking for a while that perhaps we'd like to put together a Discord community where people can talk to us directly and share these sorts of things. So if you feel like that's something you'd like to take part in, let us know in the comments, and we'll think about setting something like that up. And finally, we'd like to once again just give a huge thank you to our Patreon subscribers for their continued support and for helping us form the story that we're about to tell in these next few episodes. And if you are yourself enjoying the show and you feel like you'd like to give us a little bit of support, you can go and check out our Patreon. We offer early access, ad-free episodes over there, as well as opportunities to take part in telling the story, as our Patreons have already wonderfully done with their creative suggestions for some of the coming episodes. And without further ado, close your eyes, make yourself comfortable, and join us where the kingdom sleeps. So, just a few hours ago, Yohm and his Mamu spirit friend Tonto made their entrance into the vast and vibrant desert city of Sunkolt, having just travelled from the far end of the great island of Schwertsuna to meet with friends and to hopefully seek some answers to some strange new abilities that Yohm had recently acquired. Since having arrived, he has discovered several things. He's found that Tonto is able to change size as he shrank himself down in order to be approved entrance into the city. He's met with his old friend Ren at the Harvesters Guild, who afforded him an invitation to dinner that evening with the Servant Supreme, who wishes to thank him for saving his son Kieran's life in the perils of the desert. And Yohm has also spoken to Kieran and found him a seemingly changed man who in some way finds himself also tethered to Tonto, being able to understand Kieran's speech as he cannot with most other people. And so after some parting words of encouragement and solidarity, Yohm, with Tonto atop his shoulder, heads out of the Harvesters Guild outpost and back out onto the streets of Sunkolt. And he is immediately once again met with this wave of sheer, bustling atmosphere around him. He hears the garbled calls and songs of street vendors and performers around him. He smells in the air this mixture of perfumes and smoke, and his eyes are flooded with the vibrant life of colourful fabrics, shimmering tiles, and wild growing flora that bursts from the ground in any patch that isn't too frequently disturbed by the footsteps of passing people. And so as Yohm enters back into the flow of the city, what are the things that are most in his mind?
He knows he must find a nicer way of presenting himself before meeting with such a lauded member of the Harvesters Guild, and he has at least a vague direction that he's been pointed in towards the Guardians Guild outpost, and where he will also then somewhat haphazardly make towards the Guardians Guild on behalf of Yohm to hand over a medallion and, I suppose, try and plead a case for the people of Sunalaga. And on the way he'll see if he can meet anyone and buy some new clothes and get a feel of the people here in the city, and see if they're as panicked about the Mamu as some of the people he's come across outside.
So, with those many diverging options within Yohm's mind, does he seek to head towards the Guardians Guild with the hope to find fortune in some nice establishment that he might happen upon along the way, or is he on a shopping expedition first and after the Guardians Guild after?
Yohm, being the practical wayfarer that he is, I think he'll just try and use the most efficient path without really realising it. So I think he'll, head towards the Guardians Guild first and see if there's anyone he can meet along the way that might be able to offer him a bit more advice, or hopefully just have the wares he's looking for to sell him directly.
With the very accurate map that Ren gave Yohm earlier, he unfurls it and finds it quite easy to discern which direction he needs to be heading in to get towards the Guardians Guild, which appears to be in the middle tier of this pyramidal city. So Yohm would find himself heading along these narrow, crowded streets in an uphill direction, slowly winding towards what he can see just off in the distance, if he cranes his neck into the sky, is a slightly more opulent, a slightly more well looked after portion of the city. But as he moves himself, as I say, through these more meagre, haphazard, bustling market streets, roll a perception for me.
That's going to be a 9.
And with a 9, Yohm is almost taken into this current of flowing people that seem to move him in a particular direction, almost against his will, and he's somewhat forced, you could say, but perhaps just from the will to go with the flow, down into a slightly narrower street that seems quite busy with many merchants, a few straggling performers here and there, and dazzled by all of these sights and sounds. He's somewhat taken by surprise to hear a gleeful giggling of Tonto on his shoulder behind him. And if he's to turn around, he'll now see that Tonto is being boisterously, playfully accosted by 3 little pink Mamu who are joyfully circling his arms and legs, floating around these very spirit-like, almost as if pure flames that hold their individual forms, just rolling around Tonto, who seems to be enjoying the experience.
Tonto, are these friends of yours?
Well, all the Mamu are my friends, so yes, but I have not met them before.
And he can't help but giggling away at what seems like a ticklish feeling he's getting from their movements.
Well, just stay close, okay? Don't get too lost. It's awful busy here.
Oh, don't worry, Yohm. I'll be right here.
And as he says these words, almost as quickly as they seem to have appeared out of nowhere, they rush off, almost like pluming smoke into the air, and then off into a side street.
Still surprises me how different they are in just a matter of days. I'm sure we'll have many more interactions like that, won't we?
Well, I should hope so. I haven't seen too many Mamu in the city.
I remember there being more. But hey, there are just too many people for that now.
There sure are a lot of people.
And Tonto looks around him, now only just taking in the busy atmosphere around him and the sheer number of people going to and fro. And as Yohm continues down the street, he will now see a vast number of merchants that all seem to be calling out to the crowd, offering their wares, some dangling trinkets from their arms that shine in the afternoon sun, attempting to glint them to draw people's attention, some with long flowing linens and rubbing them at people to demonstrate their quality. And Yohm would feel that this might be a good area to source what he might be looking for.
Well, he'll visit the first vendor he comes across that's purveying any sort of linens, like you mentioned, any fabrics, and just try and ask if they themselves tailor to clothes, or if they have someone nearby that might.
The very first person that Yohm comes across almost comes across Yohm first, as they very partially step into his flow of movement with a long piece of sheer, almost translucent fabric, saying, "Very good, no? Do you see its quality?"
Its quality is undeniable. Well, hold it up for me, if you'd be so kind.
And almost taken aback by your seeming interest, he very excitedly, quickly and willingly takes the fabric that he's holding and unfurls it out in a way you can tell is quite practiced, and you can see how large and beautiful this fabric is now.
Now, tell me, trader, this material here, is it the sort that'll be seen around the upper districts?
Oh, you mean, in terms of clothing, sir?
Yes, I'm in need of a new outfit.
Most certainly. You will find that this is of a quality that the nobles themselves will be found walking to the finest galas in.
And, is there anyone in town that can tailor such a thing to me? And he lifts his arms up in a manner to show all his draping, raggedy patchwork bits of robes just dangling off of him.
And this vendor, quite perceivably trying to suppress almost a grimace at your lackluster apparel, shakes his head slightly and looks you in the eye and says, "Why, of course, sir, there is many a talented seamster in the city. I would highly recommend Clara, just over at the end of the street there. She is quite a talent, and I think you'll find her someone you most likely get on quite well with."
That's an awfully bold assumption.
Quite possibly, sir, quite possibly, but you may find you have an affinity.
Well, thank you. This way, you say?
Yes, that's right, sir. Yes, take this fabric with you to her, and she'll make something quite fine of it, I'm sure. Just make sure you tell her that Fritzu sent you.
Fritzu, of course, and do you take harvesters?
Of course, sir.
And how much will this run me back?
Oh, this here, I'd say 50 marks.
No, it's been a moment since I've been in a city, but 50 marks sounds quite steep even to me.
Roll me a persuasion.
And that's a 2.
And Fritzu looks with a furrowed brow into your eye, quite convincingly, saying, "Well, I think you will find no finer for less a price, sir."
Well, I don't really have the time to haggle over this, so 50 marks it is, I suppose.
Excellent, sir, excellent, sir. I will just wrap this up for you. And he once again, very expertly and quickly, folds this large piece of beautiful red fabric into a small bundle and, grabbing a linen ribbon from the side, puts it together and then, just tucking it under his arm slightly, glides his open palm forward in anticipation of marks.
Here you are then, as he reaches into his mark pocket around the back of his robe. He begins just, again rather haphazardly, slipping them onto his hand and then quickly onto the table around him as well, as he doesn't have too much time or effort to count them out individually.
And you can see Fritzu's eyes gleaming and a small, curt smile on his face as he sees these marks come out.
Thank you for your materials. Thank you for your directions. Before I go, though, friend, tell me, when was the last time you left the city?
Oh. And Fritzu is very taken aback by this question. And you see him look upwards into the sky in a bit of pensive thought. I couldn't actually say, sir. It might have been many seasons ago. 7 or 8, perhaps.
So all this talk and fear of the Mamu, what does it mean to you?
Well, there's certainly a lot of talk, that's for sure. I didn't see it myself, but the northern wall was toppled, well, part of it at least, by a rogue Mamu. That's the story they say.
And when was this?
Or perhaps 12 days ago.
Oh, thank you. I might have to check it out.
Well, I'm sure you're a capable traveller, but do be careful, sir. Not so much of the Mamu, but perhaps those who will wonder you're inquiring, if you catch my drift.
Thanks for your concern, but I'm much better in situations like that than these, as I'm sure the weight in your hand can now tell.
I think you've done quite well, sir, quite well, if I say so myself. And he bows slightly as he offers the bundle of fabric over to you.
Thank you. Yohm is going to give a polite nod back as he heads off in the direction that he was just pointed in, cautiously checking his shoulder every now and again to make sure Tonto is following in step.
And Fritzu, as you turn to leave, once again points in the correct direction, smiles and nods. And turning your head to look for Tonto, you'll see that whilst he appears quite distracted by the very many things happening around him, he is indeed still trailing behind you. And it's quite a short distance of working your way through the crowds and other merchants vying for your attention before you come to a large tent just at the end of the row, which on the outset looks quite unassuming and has 2 simple but quite elegant draping red velvet curtains, above which you can see a sign made of beautiful, unadulterated, unworked piece of desert wood. The words Clara's written atop in gold leaf writing.
What do you think, Tonto? This looks actually quite nice in here, doesn't it?
And Tonto smiles and nods his head quite energetically, saying,
Yes, we should go in.
and he begins to do so even before you've made your first steps.
Now, Tonto, just remember, whilst we're in there, be as obviously adorable as you can imagine.
Okay.
And you can see him begin to overthink that sentiment slightly. And he tucks his paws towards his chest, and you can see that his eyes actually become very, very slightly larger, more childlike at this. And he takes very short, cute little steps underneath the small opening at the bottom of the curtains through which Yohm wouldn't be able to fit.
Well, he thinks to himself that it's enough to make a dwergo go soft, and then bows his head, follows him into the tent.
As you follow the disappearing form of Tonto underneath this velvet curtain, you enter in, and revealed to you is a beautiful room and a marvellous wave of very fine embroidered fabrics lay in front of you, and gowns that hang in little wooden frames around this room, in the centre of which is a large wooden table which is covered in scraps of fabric, and several cutting tools scattered on top. On the far side of this table, in front of you stands a kind of person that Yohm does not see too often. A merfolk woman with very short turquoise hair that almost spikes on her head, very deep blue skin, and a flowing hooded purple robe that is clasped together in the centre with a gold pendant that appears to be some sort of Mamu creature. And this woman is concentrating, hard at work, with a sharp cutting tool in hand, very precisely attempting to cut a piece of fabric in front of you, so much so that she doesn't quite notice you as you enter.
Clara, I presume.
And her head very slowly moves upward as she carefully lays her cutting tool down so as not to ruin her work. And looking up at you, her eyes go wide, and you're greeted with a great smile through which you can see her very slightly pointed teeth. And she says,
Well, look what the tide pulled in. Don't get too many gilly folk round here.
Yeah, colour me surprised. It's been years since I've seen another one of my kind around here.
Really? How long have you, been in the desert then?
As long as I can remember.
Oh.
Not often in the city, though.
Well, when were you last back in Shifhaka?
I can't say I ever remember being there.
Never been there?
Not as long as I know.
Well.
I grew up here, not in the caravans.
You grew up in the desert?
No, believe it or not, but...
You do realise you've got gills, don't you?
No tusks yet, I know, but... The monstrum have always been more at home with me than... us Finny lot. Here, how do yours hold up in the sand?
Oh, I try my very best not to go out there too much. I stick to the city. I've not been here long myself, but no, not too well.
I know. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. I was about to offer some alchemical tips. Home remedies, at least, but and Yohm will start just reaching into his knapsack and just quite frantically, but a little bit excitedly at the same time, reach for a small, almost phial that he keeps on him at all the times, and he'll pull that out and quickly pop the cork off of it and hold it probably a little bit too close for comfort towards Clara's face, as if to offer a bit of a sniff.
And Clara, looking at this vial that you've produced in front of her, very tentatively begins to move her nostrils towards it, and getting that small whiff, decides to inhale deeply. And you can see her sigh with relief. And once again that smile peels across her face. Oh wow, that's magnificent, that.
Well, even more than the scent, it's a little remedy I was taught when I was younger. You can extract it from quite a few of the cacti out in the dunes, and if you just distill it in such a manner, it actually makes a rather soothing ointment. Keeps me going out there for weeks. If you just rub it in, it's, I think, better than being in water itself.
Well, I was gonna say, surely you'd prefer just to get yourself in water?
No. I find that the longer I spend out of it, the easier it gets.
And she shakes her head at you, smiling still.
You are a curious fellow. Glad to have met you, though.
Well, are you as well? What brings you here? I obviously don't remember ever making the choice.
Well, if you're a seamster in Shifhaka, there's not a whole load of business, especially for someone with talents such as myself. And whilst the sand doesn't agree with me so much, the marks certainly do.
Oh, you're right. This is the place for any true artisan. I suppose he nods towards some of the wares up on the wall. This is a little more fulfilling than making nets and fixing sails.
Very much so. My parents weren't too pleased with my decision, but I'm hoping if I can return with a little bit of savings, they'll soon see I made the right choice in joining the Artisans Guild.
Yeah, we'll see, but do try and get out of the city sometime. See some of the desert.
If you say so. Not sure what's out there, really.
I'd be intrigued to hear what you thought. I've always found it almost calling to me. I think it's got an awful lot to do with the sea, those sands. I just want to know another merfolk's opinion on it. Don't know if I'm just strange.
I think you're mad. But if I do head out there, I'll find you, let you know.
The name's Yohm, by the way.
Nice to meet you, Yohm. Clara.
Thanks, Clara. Anyway, Sorry, there's a lot happened to me lately. I am here on business, and so it may seem. Someone down the street, Fritzu, he sent me here with this. As he reaches out for the bundle of fine fabrics and presents it to her.
She, in her very delicate, precise way, grabs the fabrics from you, and with a slightly furrowed brow says, "Oh, old Fritzu, eh?"
Yes, I have a 4-mil engagement later this evening, and as I'm sure you're aware, I'm a little bit like a fish out of water at the moment for the upper district.
Yes. Well, if you're looking for something real to wear, I'm sure we can make something from this, most certainly. Please tell me that you didn't pay more than 30 marks for this.
I did.
That'll be Fritzu for you.
And that'll be me for me as well. I've never been good in these places.
Well, never you mind. I think I can compensate you for the trouble, eh? Let's call this one on the house.
Are you sure? Please take this then instead. As he passes forward that lotion he was showing earlier.
And she very happily takes it from Yohm.
Thank you. I cannot accept your charity like that, but the trade, that suits me just fine.
Not charity at all. I'm just... it's refreshing to see blue in these parts.
You're right.
Well, I think, yes, perhaps I can get something done in the next few hours.
Ideally, yes, it's about 5-6 hours, I think, till I'm due to meet a friend, and then we're heading uptown.
Aye. No, that'll be fine then. Come back here. Yes, in a little while. And you'll have something.
Thank you,
Did you, want anything? Well, I don't mean to be presumptuous, but you come in here with your desert robes and your guiding Mamu. I can see you're somewhat of a traveler. Perhaps an adventure of sorts.
More and more so.
Well, a lot of adventurers come to me for my specialty.
I would be so bold as to pretend to know what that might be. I am.
Well, it's
very new here.
Understandable. Yes, it's quite new to me, but well, clothing has been infused with certain kinds of worked brightstone for specific effects.
So yes, I've heard talks of such accessories, but
perhaps you might need to be more stealthy, be more perceptive.
Now you mention it. I have no idea what I need to be at the moment, I feel like. I need to be a bit better at everything.
A bit better at everything would be tricky.
Aye. This isn't, offensive to the Mamu, though, is it?
To be quite honest, I don't know.
Do you have is anything here already treated in such a way?
Yes, I can get you, something.
If you wouldn't mind, just, bring it closer to my companion here.
And she walks over to one of the garments hanging from the wooden frames at the back of the tent, bringing it down this beautiful black and gold embroidered robe, folding it over her arm, looking at you quite curiously, but still doing as you say, bringing it over towards Tonto, who is still looking rather conserved with his paws to his chest and his large eyes, trying not to make too much of a fuss. And he hesitantly looks up at you as the garment comes closer to him. And as it does so, he reaches out to it, stroking the velvety black fabric. And he seems fine, saying, "This feels nice."
I think he might like it. And if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. Now, if you hadn't noticed, I suppose my biggest issue at the moment would be my inability to socialize well with city folk. Is there anything that might make me a bit more welcomed by them?
I think so. I've not actually tried to do this before, but there are charms of illumination. They cast light on things or allow you to be more perceptive of people. I could try to infuse that.
And actually, yes, that would be quite helpful indeed. It's my only real interaction with Brightstone so far. He jostles his shoulder around where his staff is like resting between him and his knapsack to indicate the stone at the top of it. This whole thing's got me out of a pinch or two so far.
Okay, I'll do my best.
And, how much will that cost?
Like I say, I think I'd much prefer a friend out of this transaction.
Well, if there's anything you can think of, anything out there, at least, that piques your interest, consider it yours, and I will get it.
Aye, don't worry. If I think of something, I'll certainly let you know.
And, sorry to delay your work too much longer, but that medallion on your chest there, am I right in thinking that's a Mamu?
And she peers down, almost forgetting that she wears it, and looks up again. Oh yes. Yes, quite. You might recognize. This little fellow is what they call the Seaman's companion. From Shifhaka. Do you know the tales?
I've heard some, but I'm not sure if that one rings a bell.
They're the ones that help the seamen harvest from the sea, showing them where the fish lay.
Fan of the old ways, then?
Oh yes.
Well, I guess that's something all merfolk have in common.
Most certainly.
You'll find they're much kinder to the Mamu outside these walls. A lot of the villages out there just rely on them, in much the same way I hear they do back home.
That's good to know. When you live in a city like this, you start to think everybody's changed. They told me that there'd be Mamu in the city. And there is, but not as many as they said.
Yes, it's been too long since I was last here, but it has changed a lot. I used to be teeming with them. It's like the sky was a mosaic for all the colours the sun would peer through, but now they're just stopping them at the gates.
It's fear.
Yes, you're right. I'm yet to feel it myself, but if half the stories I'm hearing are true, can't say I blame them entirely. It just feels so wrong, though.
I'd like to see, or hope, things get better. But I do feel like they'll get worse first.
Maybe. But as long as we keep trying, it'll always get better. That's something the desert teaches you for sure.
Well then, maybe I should make a trip.
I would recommend it. In the evening, for your first time. It really does dry you out.
And she laughs to herself and looks at you with a true, earnest look of friendship.
Thank you, Clara. I'll be back around, well, when it gets dark, I suppose.
That sounds about right. Yes, you better leave me if you want this by dinner time. It'll be a bit of work.
Thank you, once again. I'll be back.
I look forward to it.
Now, Tonto, come. As he just turns to leave.
And Tonto, very confused as to what has just taken place, quickly but still conservedly and cutely follows after you out into the open street. And as you make your way into the light once more, Tonto half whispers, half calls out to you. Yohm, do I still have to be adorable?
No, you're all right for the moment, Tonto. You did good. Very good.
Oh, that's a relief. And in a big sigh of relief, his form relaxes, and you find that his eyes return to their normal size, but almost as if with an intake of breath, his form returns to its normal size as well.
Does that take much out of you? Changing like that?
It does make me a little tired. I couldn't do it too much.
And if you wanted to, could you get bigger as well?
Yes. When I change shape, I don't really think about what shape I change into, but I suppose I've gotten bigger before.
wait until we're out and about again before we try that one, eh?
Okay.
But nonetheless, Clara in there, she's going to sort us out for this evening, so I think our next step is probably onto the Guardians after this.
Okay.
Actually, do you know what just happened in there, Tonto?
And he smiles, a great big grin across his face, saying, "No, I have no idea."
Well, do you remember that talk we had about promises?
I do. And he reaches into his chest to pull out the mark and hold it up to you.
There you go, precisely. Now that man we met a moment ago, well, let's just say we didn't trust each other very much. So, I had to give him an awful lot of promises for something in return. Now Clara, that lady inside there, the one that looks like me, now she liked us, you and I. That's why you were being so adorable. And because of that, we got a very nice promise in return.
I see. That makes a lot of sense. I could tell that man before was lying.
You could?
Yes.
Oh, exactly, I was. Well, I'll be honest, I was pretty sure he was as well, but I don't know how to prove such things.
Well, I couldn't hear what he was saying, but people smell bitter when they are lying.
They smell?
Yes.
So, Tonto, if I tell you, you are magnificent, what do I smell like?
Like flowers.
And now if I was to say, Tonto, you're awful stinky, what do I smell like now?
Like awful roots from the ground.
And that works for everyone?
I think so.
And it's fascinating. Much more useful than you'd imagine.
It's useful?
Oh, yes. Now, people as wonderful as they can be, they are quite dispositioned towards dishonesty. Now, if it's just the difference between a few marks, it's not that big a deal, but sometimes a lie or a truth can be the difference between life and death.
Wow. Yohm? What is death?
And that is the question, isn't it? And no matter who you ask, they will tell you something different every time. And the way I've always seen it, it's the end to my story.
Well then, I hope you don't have any death for a long time.
Thank you. Neither do I, if I can help it. And I imagine with that nose of yours, that'd only help me go a bit longer.
And he smiles very happily. Excited, even, to hear you say those words.
So, Tonto, if ever you smell something very rotten when I'm talking with someone else, please let me know.
Of course. If that's useful, I will let you know.
Thank you.
In that case, you should probably know. Not everywhere, but mostly, this city smells bitter.
Yeah, that tracks. Now, not everyone here will be a bad person. Life's hard, and the truth of it is, it only gets harder as you go on. Sometimes people, and they tell lies, It's just easier that way. We can't blame them all for that. Not all of it's bad. Trust your nose. I'm sure you'll be able to tell when it's really something awful.
Okay, Yohm. If you trust me, then I will trust me too.
Perfect. Well, we've got a few more hours to kill, so where do you want to head next, Tonto? I believe the outpost for the Guardians Guild is a bit further around this spire, and the academy yet higher than that still.
Well, from what you've been telling me, I'm a little bit scared of the Guardians Guild. If you're asking me, I think I would like to see Eli.
That's his name, well done.
I would like to see Eli, but I will follow you wherever you go.
Well, thank you, Tonto. I'll always be sure to try my best in going places we only want to go, but sometimes we're not going to be able to control that.
I understand. We do things we are scared of to help the people that we care about, our friends.
Exactly. And we need to go to the Guardians Guild to help Hannah.
We have to help Hannah.
Exactly. Out of everyone, we have to help Hannah. So we'll be quick. And then we'll go meet Eli. He sounds much nicer.
Okay. In that case, I'm ready.
Well then, off we go.
And so, with a solid sense of purpose and a newfound comfort in this somewhat bemusing city, having just met someone like yourself, another merfolk, who wishes to call themselves your friend. With a strong heart, you and Tonto make your way back through the city streets of Sunkolt, once again in that upwards direction, through the curving, steep streets of Sunalaga, with its glossy stone pavements that are somewhat difficult to traverse, especially in an uphill direction. Making your way past ever more merchant stalls, singing performers, people demonstrating gleeful art in the streets, some making sculptures, some producing immaculate, lifelike paintings, almost like a living museum. And slowly making your way through this environment, Yohm will begin to notice that the walls of the buildings become more polished and clean, and the tiles gleam, very few of them being cracked or broken, as you observed in the streets below. And more flora begins to sprout from the ground. Here you begin to walk through avenues of
huge planted trees with great dangling leaves that just brush against you as you walk. And oddly enough, you also begin to notice that the temperature, the climate, becomes a little cooler, and that usually oppressive sun of the desert seems to be tapered in some way. And it's almost refreshing at first, but perhaps a little chilly after a while. Continuing to make your way in this grand environment where it becomes very apparent that there seems to be a little bit more wealth within the city. Following the expert directions of Wren, it's not long before you make your way in front of what at first sight looks like a grand temple with large white columns at the front. And craning your neck up into the sky, you'll see gold domes that sit as the roof of this building. And there are a series of white marble steps that lead up to a large wood and iron gate, in front of which stand two tall, proud members of the Guardians Guild, much like those you witnessed upon entering the city. And just over to the side, on the steps, you'll notice a small group of children who are fiddling with something. From this distance, it's not quite clear, but they appear to be perhaps throwing something on the ground, perhaps shuffling stones. Whatever they appear to be doing, there is a member of the Guardians Guild just next to them, who appears discontented with their play, and is giving them quite low and quiet words of disapproval. Gently but firmly, it seems, encouraging them to move along. What are Yohm's thoughts as he looks at this scene?
Typical Guardians Guild. All a lot of front. Forget what their actual purpose is. Can't even let children play without stomping all over it.
And what is Yohm's first move?
He'll continue up the stairs, not obviously interfering, at least with the situation to the side, but he would gently waft past enough that he might be able to pick up a sentence or two, or prove a point of interaction should any of the children want one.
Roll me a perception check.
That's a 7.
as you walk up these shining white marble steps towards the doorway. Off in the distance where the children are, they're very animatedly playing around whatever this is on the ground. But the three are so tightly crowded around it, you still can't quite manage to see what it is. Although you do manage to catch just a couple of the low words from the Guardians Guild member, saying, "Oh, I don't care if it's perfect. You just take your little newfangled toys," and then it trails off as you continue walking. At which point you notice Tonto is also very intrigued by not just what the children are doing, but the very fact that there are children at all.
And I'll whisper gently, "What do you think of that, Tonto?"
"What do you think they're doing?" he says with a bright smile.
Much like you were earlier, they are playing.
"That sounds fun."
It was. When we were younger and smaller, with less cares. But now, we don't have such time for things, do we?
Oh, I was hoping we might. Maybe after we've done the things we need to do to help people.
Oh yes. When we're back in the desert, all the fun will be ours.
Okay then.
We can go sand sliding again.
Oh, sand sliding.
Oh yes. Me and the Houndbacks, it's I don't know who started it actually, but it's always a little bit of fun.
I would like to do that very much.
We will. When we've attended to this business first.
And you now come right to the entranceway of the Guardians Guild. At which point the two stern-looking guards, without moving a muscle, standing there, armor-clad, with their spears in hand, say, "Halt," in unison. At which point, one of them, a slightly smaller, but still rather large, Dwergar gentleman, addressing you. "What is your business here?"
I carry a message from one of your members in Zunalaga. Then Yohm reaches into his pocket and tightly grasps that medallion that he was given, and then pulls it out, almost reluctant to show it, but nevertheless he does.
And as you do so, the Guardians Guild member almost snatches it from your hand and peruses it quite acutely. And then, after looking at it and at his fellow guard, back to you, and then finally down at Tonto, he says, sharply, firmly, "No Mamu."
No Mamu, no message.
"That's fine by us."
I imagine your master Yohm wouldn't be too pleased about that.
And the two guards look at each other and appear a little bit pensive for a moment.
Imagine what it would take for a master of the Guardians Guild to rely on a wayfarer like me to pass a message. I'd imagine it was quite important, wasn't it?
One moment. Stay where you are. And he opens up the large wooden and iron gate, just slightly enough to sharply pop himself inside and close the door behind him. And after just a few moments, the door opens once again, and the guard does not return, but in his place is an elderly Duergar woman who is also dressed in what looks like more of a ceremonial armor, and she has long, curly blonde hair that flows down her back. And she looks to you, almost as if she recognizes you, saying, "Ah, you are Yohm, are you?"
I am, and I'm concerned why you know that already.
We have had a contact from Yohm. We have been expecting you.
Well then, am I allowed in?
Yes, you have proven yourself with this seal. But I am afraid we have rules for the building. We may not permit a Mamu to enter.
Well then. Yohm sits down on the step he's standing on. I suggest you get yourself comfortable.
And she looks down at you as you drop onto the step, quite disparagingly. And after looking up into the sky and seemingly murmuring under her breath to herself for just a second, she takes a deep sigh and sits down next to you on the stair. I am sorry, Yohm. What is it that we can do for you? And for Yohm?
Well, it's a lot to it really, but suppose it goes like this. And Yohm will mostly honestly recount his last 4 or 5 days in a concise enough manner. Explain everything from the expedition with Ren and the other apprentices to the incident with the Mamu and Kieran, to returning to Sunalaga and meeting with the guild and talking with some of the villagers there, and then ever so briefly about his summons to the council later today.
And as Yohm recounts this, as you say, mostly honestly, is there anything specifically that he omits?
He will be as withholding but not dishonest about his connection with Tonto and the specifics therein of what he has done directly with the Mamu. But if pressed, he's unlikely to straight up lie about it. He's just trying to keep some things closer to his chest for now.
Well, Yohm, she says, shaking her head in somewhat disbelief. That is all quite a lot to take in. This is all true.
Every word of it.
Quite frankly, I don't know what to say, and I'm not sure what we can do for you.
You can slow down your works in Sunalaga. Please. Just for a while longer. The people there, they're simple folk. We like the old way. To block off all interaction with the Mamu from nothing, it'll kill the town off completely. I know the people there need protecting and you have a job to do, but I and Yohm all agree that there is more to this than just building walls. And I know I'm onto something here. I just need to keep pulling at the threads a little longer.
I would love to believe that is true, Yohm. And of course, I sympathize with your position. I think we were all raised by people who depended upon the Mamu. It is deep in the veins of our culture. But times have changed so quickly, and this is not wholly our decision. These instructions come from the top, they come from Kopfyama. This is not just happening here, Yohm, it's happening across the kingdom. To rebel against the orders of the Servant Supreme of the Guardians Guild, well, it is tantamount to mutiny.
Well, what if another Servant Supreme could ask on our behalf?
I think that might work, but I'm sorry, Yohm, I don't know any other Servant Supreme. I barely know that of the Guardians Guild.
I can see it in you. You at least have some appreciation of my plight. And I thank you for that. If a Servant Supreme can open the right doors, start asking the right questions, would you and your people happily change course? Instead of building a wall to choke out that town, would you just not spare some people to protect it?
Well, I think I can only mostly speak for myself. But, of course, nobody wanted this to happen with the Mamu. It is causing great pain, and the walls, the barriers, are a great cost to us. If we could stop it somehow, well, there would be some who opposed. But I think if the rest of the Servant Supremes, if they came together, well, we'd have no choice. But I don't know how to do this, Yohm. I fear it is unrealistic.
Maybe, but if my last week has told me anything, that unrealistic things are perfectly possible in today's age.
If your story is to be believed, then you are absolutely correct.
You will. If not today, if not tomorrow. Soon. You will believe it. It's not just the Mamu that are changing. This whole world is an our place in it. I think your guild has a lot of work cut out for it.
Don't we know it, Yohm? We already feel it.
Just don't forget, you're guardians for a reason. That is not just for the people against the Mamu. That is for all of this.
I appreciate the sentiment, Yohm. But I ask you, please to remember, we are guardians, but we are people too. And many of us are simply afraid.
Maybe I'm just a little different then, but when I was face to face with one of these, as big as I can remember seeing Mamu, and yet it wasn't fear that froze me, but wonder. They're not all forces of destruction, it's something else. It's not just an earthquake happening around us, it's almost a cry for help. Sopros needs help.
Well, Yohm, if you have any ideas how to help it, I am listening.
And I have some. And I'm going to need you to believe me to make any of them happen. Yohm spies around himself for a moment, and is the other guardian still stood by, or have the two of us got a little privacy?
Roll me a perception.
17.
With a 17, you will notice that both the guards are no longer standing outside the gate, although the door of the gate is open slightly ajar, and you cannot quite see in. With a 17, you will also notice that Tonto is no longer by your side, and is over with the children.
Well, please do me the decency of not arresting me for this, but you see that yellow Mamu over there?
I do.
Tonto, what did I tell you about playing?
And Tonto's head snaps sharply up. He spins around to see you, and in a force of sheer excitement, he glides over to you, as if a ghost, without moving his feet, slightly hovering off the floor, as if he just took one long gliding stride several feet towards you, and gently lands just in front of you to say, "But Yohm, it's so exciting, you have to see what the children are playing with."
We will, but first then, there's someone here I'd like you to meet. And then Yohm turns back to the Guardian. As you can see, this one is different. And obviously I am too. It can understand me and it will listen to my commands. And it speaks. It has a name, a personality. By the eye, I wouldn't believe in myself if I didn't have it happen to me, but is real. And this is how I was able to pull that young apprentice out of wherever it was we were. Because since then, all of the Mamu have acted differently with me. I do not interact with them the same I do with Tonto here, but they heed my call nonetheless. And in just 3 days, the discoveries I am making, the abilities of these Mamu are beyond the greatest invention of Brightstones, and they possess them like their frivolities. And I wish I had more to this grand scheme, this plan. I do not pretend to hold all the answers, I just know that they are somewhere out there. And I may be in a unique position to find them.
And this woman in front of you takes a sharp, staggered breath in, looking at your face, listening intently to your words. And you can see quite patently staring at your hexagonal pupils as you say these things. This is quite remarkable, inexplicable. I don't think there's ever been anything like this before.
Not that I'm aware of.
If you can talk to the Mamu, if you can control them, well, it might just change everything.
I was worried it might.
Now I have seen it. Now that I understand, I will do my best to send a message to my superiors. I cannot promise anything, but I have good stock that they will believe what I have to say if I tell them about what you can do.
I just ask that you, if at all possible, please try and keep the details vague. It's all so new to me. I'm still trying to figure this out, and I just don't want the wrong information falling on the wrong ears.
Yes, I understand. I will do my best to be tactful.
Thank you, and guess it depends how tonight goes. I'm meeting with the Servant Supreme of the Harvesters Guild, under his request, funnily enough.
My goodness. Well, it sounds like that is a great opportunity.
I'm trying to see it in such a way. But rest assured I will be pleading the same case to him as well.
Well then, perhaps there is hope.
There certainly is. Always.
I must return to my duties.
Yes.
But it was a pleasure to meet you. And...
Sorry, what was your name?
Elgara.
Elgara. You are the master of this guild hall?
That is correct.
Thank you for your time. I know I'm not the easiest person to deal with in places like this. I appreciate you giving us the chance.
To be frank, I have found you quite refreshing. And, well, I have a lot of faith in Yohm.
Yeah, he's a good one.
I think the more you give us a chance, Yohm, you will find there are many of us that are good ones. You can't be a guardian without wanting to do a little good.
True. I've just never met a guardian that doesn't also like doing a little bad every now and then.
Well then, that will give me something to work on.
And I too. Until next time.
Until next time.
Then Yohm will stand up and outstretch an arm to shake.
And Helgara takes your arm with a great firm shake and a look of deep respect in her brow. She gives a small bow before turning around and heading back into the guild building.
As soon as she does, Yohm shakes off his hand for not feeling that firm a handshake in quite some time. And then mutters to Tonto, "We're making a lot of friends today, it seems."
And Yohm finds that there is no answer as he turns around to find Tonto, having scooted away once again to where the children are.